yourself comfortable, and then we're going to start our session soon. Thank you for coming to the free training under the umbrella of National Training Week. The title of our training today is Blockchain 101. Is you guys aware of it? Before we start, let me introduce to our expertise for today. First of all, let me introduce you to the CEO of Metadise, this guy. Please give me a round of applause. And the second one is COO of Metadise, Dylan.
Hello.
And then we have next Ben Chan from UK, Singapore. He just flew in from Singapore yesterday. He said that he loves Bicolor from Sarawak. So please belanja him a lot of Bicolor after this, yeah. The next one of our expertise is Reuben for FIRO. He is the OG of blockchain. So please throw him a lot of questions today. Alright? Alright, so now I will invite James Gunn, the CEO of Metadise, to say some introductions to you first.
Thank you. Thank you for taking your time to join this morning Blockchain 101. Thanks to the National Training Week. This first batch, this training facility is fresh from oven 2 days ago. So you are the first batch. So welcome you to Metadise. Let me introduce you to Metadise, why we have this setup. Okay, this Metadise, actually we work on the concept of eat, play, earn concept. So you can see the ground floor is a bike bistro. Level 2 is our e-sport simulated racing that will be featured in Sukma 2 months later, and in future Olympics of all the e-sport icons. So we train young people to be our Sarawak representative to participate in international race using simulated racing. So this level 3 is earn. We don't use learn because we want you to earn, put in effort to earn your knowledge, then you earn your money, and then you earn your network. So we have the eat, play, earn concept under Metadise. So as a Web3 Academy, we are going to bring in Blockchain 101, Cybersecurity 101. We are going to bring in Metaverse 101, and also many others like AI 101. So these 4 areas in next few months you can see we roll out courses. I hope to have support from all of you, whether you are IT line or you are non-IT. We have various courses from non-tech and tech. So yeah, thank you again for coming. I'll pass the time to Reuben. Me?
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Reuben. I'm from Kuching, and I actually have been, in blockchain or cryptocurrencies since about 2012. And Bitcoin was in 2009 when it was first created. I actually come from a legal background. I was a lawyer for 10 years, and kind of went full time into building blockchain technology, especially privacy technology. Since 2017, so it's been quite a while. So yeah, just show that I do have the credentials to speak here. I've spoken at many prominent places like NASDAQ. Went to one of the largest hacker conferences, DEFCON in Las Vegas, and also was featured in the BBC as well. But yeah, not my first run. So anyway, today we're actually going to be learning more about blockchain technology. Obviously, there's going to be a focus on Bitcoin, which is basically the first blockchain in the world. actually, like, the understanding of blockchain technology in Malaysia is quite low. Everyone's like, oh, blockchain technology can solve everything. And even if you see a lot of government initiatives, they're very, like, I would say, naive implementations of blockchain technology. But the best way to think of blockchain technology, rather than this, groundbreaking technology, is a kind of database, right? And it is a database that has no centralized control. So, for example, kind of think about it. What's the thing I'm cutting it down? So think about it, like, for example, if a centralized database, okay, like, for example, like SPay, it's totally centralized. There's a database somewhere, maybe a SQL server, and they basically have control of what goes in and what goes out. Obviously, it's regulated, so it's a bit different. But let's talk about something like Starbucks points. There is a central server that records these servers. There will be backups, but at the end of the day, it is Starbucks that decides, okay, I like who you are, I give you more points, I can deduct points. There's a central form of control. Blockchain is the kind of like first database structure. That means that you can have like no master on it. That means there's no master copy. Everyone is a master copy. And it allows information cannot be altered. That means once you put information in, it's very difficult to rewrite information into it. And it also serves, the most important thing about blockchain is that it allows a decentralized consensus. What does that mean? Because there's no master copy. Usually if there's a master copy, you can say, okay, if there is a conflict of this database and that database, how do I resolve that conflict? If it's just a master copy, Starbucks say, this database is the master copy. But for blockchain itself, there is no master. Everyone is the master, and the consensus, the beauty of blockchain is that there are ways to resolve this conflict, which is the correct state of the blockchain. Okay, so hopefully I haven't lost everything. But I think rather than talking in a very abstract point of view, it is best to understand blockchain technology through what we call Bitcoin, which we'll talk about later. But this is just a very rough overview of all the use cases of blockchain. Obviously, financial institutions have been, piloting programs about using blockchain to transfer as a kind of I would say, replacement to SWIFT, right? Obviously, there's healthcare, supply chain management has been really big. And in Malaysia, apparently MySejahtera is on the blockchain. I'm not sure why, but it is. And there's also like really nice use cases in voting as well. So these are just some use cases of blockchain, not just cryptocurrencies and payments, but just to show you like this is the whole ecosystem of blockchain technology. So one way to kind of think about it is, what is the benefit of blockchain, right? And you have to realize that, especially, for those of you who have accounts, when you are managing with centralized databases or, Excel sheets and all of that, there's always this need to kind of reconcile, right? And this often happens like semi-manually. There still needs to be some sort of checks and balances, and it results in a lot of delays, right? And this is because everyone's keeping their own centralized databases and they have to sync it up with each other. So blockchain that kind of removes the need for this. But let me quickly get to Bitcoin, which is the very, very first blockchain, all right? So first of all, maybe what do you guys know about Bitcoin? Does anyone want to answer? Everyone? Okay. So Bitcoin, has been famous or infamous very early on. Very early on, they were but they were famous for being used for the purchase of drugs on this particular platform called Silk Road. Obviously, this was long ago, and there's a lot of other legitimate use cases, but it caught the headlines because it was used for this. Silk Road was kind of like a decentralized marketplace where people could put up anything to sell. The guy, unfortunately, is in jail at the moment, but basically, they were using Bitcoin to transfer because you did not need, how can you transact cash through a digital way, and Bitcoin enabled that, right? Money laundering, this is all the negative things, and this is why I want to kind of touch upon it because most people hear from Bitcoin is either from people say, oh, there's criminal activity, or people get very rich and like, wow, Bitcoin's going up, right? So this is kind of like the general feel that I get when people know about Bitcoin, right? And I think what we have to understand is that Bitcoin is the very, very first decentralized currency. So what is a decentralized currency? Because if you realize all government currencies are centralized, right? The government issues it. A lot of people have this misconception that, oh, currency is backed by gold. No, we haven't had that for like 20, 30, 40 years or so. It's basically backed by the government's trust, right? And how do you create a decentralized currency that has no master control? Just imagine I create a Reuben coin, right? Obviously, you don't trust me because I might say, I give 100 Reuben coins to myself. The decentralized currency portion means no one controls it, not even the creator. And this was first created by this guy called girl, or group, we don't know, in the 3rd of January 2009 by this guy called Satoshi Nakamoto. So Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. No one actually knows who he is. There's been some guesses. There's this poor Japanese guy who got outed and say, oh, he's Dorian Nakamoto, he's definitely Satoshi Nakamoto. No, it actually turned out not to be, but no one actually knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. He actually disappeared in a way that he disappeared writing on all the trades and said, like, I'm giving up, I'm handing the reins to this new lead maintainer for Bitcoin. So no one actually knows who it is, and he still holds a lot of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is no longer a flash in the pan. When I first gave this talk, I think it was worth only a couple of, maybe like $2 or $3 billion. Now the market cap is 1.2 trillion US dollars. So it is becoming one of the largest assets in the world. And they are already what we call exchange ETFs, exchange traded funds that have been recently opened in the US for institutional investors or individual investors to invest in. And right now, every day there's about $21 billion of Bitcoin being traded on exchanges. And this doesn't count like real world value exchange. So that means right now there's about 1 billion transacted on chain every day. So it is a working money, and I would say it's a pretty revolutionary to kind of create this kind of money. Now, why was Bitcoin created? He actually, when the very first block, when we say blockchain, this block that was created by Satoshi Nakamoto actually says that the bank bailout. So basically, in 2009, if you remember, there was this huge kind of financial crash. A lot of governments were bailing out banks, and this was kind of like an answer to that, because it kind of meant that governments just print money when they need to, and they decide who it should be given to, right? Have you seen during COVID, like we have been printing US dollar at a really, really record rate, like 30-40% of the supply in the past couple of years, which is kind of scary. So the answer to this is to create this decentralized currency that no one can decide to just print coins out of thin air. That means there is a fixed supply schedule. And what do I mean by fixed supply schedule? So first of all, it means that Bitcoin, there will be only 21 million Bitcoins ever. But how do you reach 21 million? Because when you issue the currency, you cannot just say, give you 21 million. How do I decide, right? So there has to be a fair way to spread this currency, or else, what's the point of having a decentralized currency? Currently, we are at 19.7 million, so we actually only about 1.3 million left Bitcoin to be mined in the world. After that, there should be no more, because we will talk about whether this is actually the case later. But yeah, I think it's a very important thing about that. The other thing that is important is that a lot of people say, hey, one Bitcoin now is like 62,000 US dollars. And people say, hey, I cannot buy Bitcoin, it's so expensive. No, you don't have to own the whole Bitcoin. It's divisible to 8 decimal places, so you can buy 0.00001 Bitcoin. So there's no restriction to that. People sort of think about it like, oh, what's the minimum amount of Bitcoin you can buy? No, as long as you can buy that, as long as it covers the transaction fees, you can buy Bitcoin. Okay. Yeah. So actually, what makes Bitcoin different, it is not the first digital currency. Some might actually say that, money in the bank is already digital, right? But in the sense that it's this independent currency, and there were previous attempts for Eagle and Liberty Reserve. But again, they're all centralized. There is an issuing body that issues these coins, right? So the key development of Bitcoin is that it's trustless and decentralized. Even the creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, cannot create coins for himself or say, oh, this invalid transaction is valid, right? So this is kind of the beauty of it. And so this is kind of just a recap, right? And there's very powerful implications of what Bitcoin is because, nobody controls Bitcoin, right? Not even the person who created it. And one of the really nice things is that, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but sometimes creating a bank account can be quite difficult, especially for a business or whatnot. With Bitcoin, you don't have to, you just generate an address that has the cryptographic credentials that allow you to hold these coins. You don't need anyone's permission. And actually how I got into Bitcoin was actually, I ran a VPN service back in 2007 or so. And VPNs now are like so, commonplace. You see all the advertisements, it comes with your antivirus, and a lot of people use it. But when I started my VPN service in 2007, a lot of financial institutions actually terminated my services. Not because I was doing anything illegal, not because there was chargeback risk. They said, this business is risky. Why would you want to hide your internet connection? You must be doing something illegal or illicit. And therefore, they cut me off from all my financial, institutions, sort of thing. And I was like, why? I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm paying my taxes. So this kind of really kind of illustrates the importance of having a decentralized currency because now that we're moving more to more digital currency, it is now become kind of commonplace for governments to say what you can or cannot use your money for, even if it is legal. If it's illegal, fine, I understand. But if it is legal, why are you stopping me from using it? And money is now being weaponized. You see, like, oh, I don't like this country, sanctions imposed upon them. Now, if you're talking about digital money, especially what we call programmatic money, you can actually set conditions to money. Just imagine, government want to tax you automatically, you just automatically deduct from the money, It's quite scary. And actually, next year, you're going to have e-invoicing where every single transaction is being reported to Inland Revenue, I pay my taxes, but I think, some of you might have been harassed by Inland Revenue. So this is not like the same tax evasion, but this is more of like a counter check to what we call, abuse of power of banks, governments, not necessarily, or just even financial institutions, is to allow money to become like a public utility. So for example, if you take a look at the internet, right? The internet is decently decentralized. You can use it for both good and bad, but there's no person that kind of controls what should be on the internet or what should not be on the internet. So we have public infrastructure for information, which is the internet, and Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies are kind of like public infrastructure for money or value transfer. So this is kind of what Bitcoin was set up to be, the public infrastructure for value transfer of money. All right? Okay. So one of the nice things is that because there is no central entity, even the creator, there's nothing to, how can you stop it? Anyone that, runs a computer, runs the software, is already part of the Bitcoin network. There's no are you expecting, they want to go to raid what office? There's no office to raid. It's totally decentralized, right? And unfortunately, the good thing is that it enables a lot of great things, but as well, because there was a long time ago, I don't know if you heard of Plus Token and all these Ponzi scams, they like to use Bitcoin because it doesn't involve banks and all of that. So that's the bad side, which we can talk about later, about how we can counter that. All right.
any questions so far before I go on, because I feel that maybe people are a bit confused. Okay, so what is the problem that Bitcoin solves, right? And we're talking about, let's talk about real apple and virtual apples. So with a physical item, if I have a real apple in front of me, I give the apple to you, you know that I don't have the apple anymore because, I just gave it to you. With a digital item, that's a bit harder. How do you know I give you the item and I retain a copy of the apple, right? So the idea is that how do I make something that I know that when I transfer something from me to you, it actually has been transferred and I'm not keeping a copy. That's the only kind of issue because it's digital only. There's no physical. You always see in all those newspapers, physical Bitcoin, people holding a physical. There's no such thing. There's some commemorative Bitcoin, but there isn't. Okay. So this is just like a summary of what I said, right? And usually, when I transfer bank, when I transfer using a bank, a minus 100, then there's a plus 100. At the end of the day, I'm trusting the banks to do the right thing. I'm trusting the central banks to keep the banks in check. But how do I do this without trusted intermediaries, right? How do I do this without banks? This is why blockchain technology is so important, right? So, yeah. Okay, so the solution here, as I've intimated earlier, is that instead of having a master copy of the database, everyone keeps a copy of the ledger. So what does the ledger mean? It's like, okay, Reuben has 10 Bitcoin, then Reuben sends to Dylan 10 Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin. Everyone records that transaction. That means there's no just one person recording, everyone can record it. And that means every single transaction in Bitcoin is kind of transparent in the sense that you can see the flow of every single coin from its first creation. So the way you can think about it is that when I transact with Bitcoin, all these thousands and thousands of computers around the world records my transaction and stores it in their computer. So even if a few computers go down and whatnot, as long as there's enough computers running the network, that ledger is kind of secure in a sense because there's so many people running it, right? And this is what we call a Bitcoin node. Right now, I don't know how big a Bitcoin node is, maybe a couple of 100 gigs, maybe 200, 300 gigs. And that contains every single transaction since 2009, right? Obviously, if you run other types of nodes, it can be several terabytes, but for Bitcoin, it's only about a couple of 100 gigs. And yeah, so basically, its ledger is the blockchain. Blockchain technology is just a kind of ledger, so it's not this mystical thing that a lot of people think about. Right? So what is the thing that makes blockchain very smart is that it can actually, what is the issue here? Because there is no master database. So what happens, okay, let's say if I have one Bitcoin, and I decide to send one Bitcoin to you, and then maybe another Bitcoin to Ben. That same Bitcoin, I'm sending it to two people. How do I reconcile which is the right transaction? Because, okay, let me kind of put it this way. Maybe in Australia, I make the transaction, okay, Reuben sends to Ben. And then maybe I'll use a VPN somewhere and put it in the UK, and Reuben sends that same Bitcoin to Dylan. Both transactions are correct in the sense that I do have the Bitcoin, and these people are both valid recipients of that Bitcoin. How do you reconcile when the network says, hey, now I don't know whether to send to Dylan or do I send to Ben, right? How does it reconcile that conflict? Obviously, some people say, oh, just first seen. That means which is the first transaction that I've seen, I will honor that one and reject the other. But because of the way the internet works, some parts of the internet would see Ben's transactions first, and some part would see Dylan's transaction first. So time in itself is not a good measure because you're like, okay, some of it saw this, some of it saw that. So which is the correct? They are both correct, but there needs to be an agreement
as to which is the valid transaction. Right? I mean, this is the whole problem of decentralized database. So, how do you rise this? How do you resolve this issue? And this is where the process called mining, which many of you may have heard, Bitcoin mining, and that is how you solve this issue, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So mining is the kind of the process to resolve these conflicts, to process these transactions and to say which transaction should go into the permanent record, which is the blockchain, right? So before it goes into the blockchain, it's like kind of floating in this thing, what we call a mempool or memory pool, where it's like, the way to kind of think about it is like pending transactions. The transactions haven't been confirmed, right? So the transaction to Dylan and the transaction to Ben have not been confirmed, they're just floating in this kind of pending transaction pool. Now, mining is the process of solving a mathematical puzzle. So this puzzle comes out as generated automatically by the protocol, and miners compete to solve this problem. Whoever solves the problem first gets the right to put the transactions into the block. So how that means is like, just imagine it's like, okay, I'm going to make it very simple. Like you ask all the computers in the world, what's 1 plus 1? And then like everyone's like, oh, 2. Okay, so if I'm the first person to say 2, I then submit my solution to the rest of the world. Everyone can check that yes, 1 plus 1 is 2. And therefore I have the right for my transactions to be put into the block. So that means when I see this conflicting transactions, I have to choose one. Is it Dylan's one or Ben's one? So I choose, okay, arbitrary. Oh, Dylan's paying me more, so I'll prioritize Dylan's transaction in that case. So this is kind of a very, very like broad understanding of how mining works, right? Now you may think, well, what's this puzzle? How can I know 1 plus 1 equals 2? Obviously, it's much more complicated, and the way this puzzle works is that it is very difficult to find the solution, but it's very easy to check the solution. Alright, so kind of think of it in this way. Like, let's say you are not an artist, you are not very good with colors, right? And I say, okay, this particular color of red, now I give you, red, green, and blue, mix the colors until you get this exact shade of red or green or whatnot. So obviously you're just randomly trying to mix the colors, until you get the exact shade. So yes, it's very difficult to mix the colors to find the exact shade, but then when everyone sees, hey, is it red? Is it the same color? So everyone can check the result very quickly, but to find the problem to find the solution to the problem is very difficult. So that's how mining works. That means it's like everyone's trying to solve a very difficult puzzle, but once the solution is found, everyone can check it like in less than a second, like 0.0001 seconds or so. Kind of understand. Okay. Alright, yeah. So that's how Bitcoin works. All these machines, mining machines, all of them are just doing calculations to find this solution to a random puzzle that is being given every block or so. So yeah, this is I'm not going to talk too much about this. A bit complex, but the idea is that how is Bitcoin distributed as we went back to the original thing. So when Bitcoin was first created, Satoshi said, okay, we are going to have a fixed supply distribution. So every block, which happens every 10 minutes or so, 50 Bitcoins are going to be created. Whoever mines the block, whoever solves the mathematical puzzle and solves that transaction is going to get that 50 Bitcoins. And that's how you distribute. That means everyone who is giving computing power to secure the network to process these transactions are earning these new Bitcoins that come into the world. Okay? And every 4 years, that new supply emission is halved. So, we started at 50 Bitcoins. After 4 years, that new emission goes down to 25 Bitcoins, then 12.5, then 6.25, and now we are at 3.125, and almost near the emission finish of Bitcoin, right? So miners also earn transaction fees for processing, when I'm trying to make my transaction go through faster, I can say, I want to pay more fees for this to be processed. So the problem with that is that there's a lot of centralization. That means the power kind of goes to the people who create these machines, and a lot of them are in China. So if you think about it, if I am selling a machine that kind of makes money, why would I sell it? Right? I will only sell a little bit of proportion to the rest of it, or use it first, then sell my leftovers, and the rest of it I'll use it to mine myself, which is actually happening with all these mining manufacturers. They keep their own farms, they mine Bitcoin by their own farms, but they sell the rest. So that leads to most of the new Bitcoin being created in this world being, monopolized by people who can set up this type of industrial scale mining, right? So yeah, these people have a lot of, I would say, power. So it's kind of anti-decentralization, because Bitcoin was supposed to be this thing that is decentralized, that everyone has a say, that it's difficult to do things unless there's large consensus. But when you have the existence of very powerful miners, they are having a very, very big say. But now it's a bit better since China banned kind of like semi-banned mining. So you can see that now it's the US has about like 33% of the hash rate, and you can see Malaysia is not bad for our size. It's like 2% of the world, and I think there's some big facilities in Cebu. Now you will see a lot of news reports that mining machines seized and illegal and whatnot. Mining is not illegal. Stealing electricity is. Okay, so to clarify, mining is not illegal. It's totally legal if you pay the electricity, but those people who steal the electricity is not correct. So yeah, you can see it's getting better. Kazakhstan has become really big because they're very cheap power, and China obviously they have a lot of huge hydro dams, so it's still a big power. But you can see now it's kind of being decentralized. And I don't know if you've been following the recent Trump debate, but Trump has said like all remaining Bitcoin in the world should be mined in the US, so he wants to increase the share of US power, right? So this is just kind of nice. So one of the things that this is I guess like a bit more advanced, but people might ask, once the last Bitcoin is mined, when we hit the supply of 21 Bitcoin, why would miners continue to mine, right? And because Bitcoin's reward is constantly decreasing. Now it's like 3.125, in the next 4 years it'll be like 1. I don't know, my math isn't very good, right? Miner rewards are half every 4 years. But when you hit 21 million, that means miner rewards are 0. What is the incentive then to continue running this network and building all this industry, paying all this electricity bills? It doesn't make sense. The idea right now, which I personally don't agree, is that transaction fees will be enough to cover this entire industry. That means that people pay transaction fees to get their transactions included in the block, and that should be enough to power all these miners and whatnot. But the problem with that is that if you realize that Bitcoin transaction volume goes up and goes down. Bull market, a lot of people are trying to do transactions. Bear market, very few transactions. Why should the security of Bitcoin fluctuate based on the number of transaction volume? Right? So this is an ongoing issue. Some people are still covering their eyes and say, oh yeah, Bitcoin only can have 21 million, even if it has a very small inflation rate, it is bad, right? This is what hard money is. So this is an ongoing issue, so that means if you ever invest in Bitcoin in the next 8 years, people say, oh, maybe we should increase it more than 21 million. This is because, this is why, okay? So right now, there is a very strong consensus to say we should not have more than 21 Bitcoin, but it's just kicking the can down the road. Now, mining is not the only way to secure a blockchain. Obviously, all these enterprise blockchains and whatnot, they don't have like mining machines to secure. MySafe Chakra isn't, the blockchain that they use is not being secured by, mining. There are other consensus mechanisms. One of it is called proof of stake. There's also something called, Byzantine fault tolerance, delegated proof of stake. I won't go too deep into this, but the idea is that mining is not the only way. It's one of the most decentralized ways. But there are ways to say like, okay, like for example, with an enterprise blockchain, I don't need thousands of people running my node. Maybe I just have 12 or 20 nodes that kind of like backups that are running this blockchain. And those blockchains are becoming very high performance. That means they can process like thousands and thousands of transactions per second because it is kind of semi-centralized, but it still has a lot of the benefits of blockchain technology. So just an idea that there are other ways to secure a blockchain besides mining. This is quite a complicated thing, but just to show you that, you know, there was Bitcoin, right? And obviously, when you are trying to change Bitcoin, right, in the sense that there may be upgrades to Bitcoin, there may be better algorithms, better ways to do certain things. There are some what we call changes that, you know, okay, how do I put this? Some changes are backward compatible and some changes are not backward compatible. So for example, if I, you know, now we say Bitcoin should have 21 million, but then I just suddenly say, hey, you know, I don't think 21 million is enough. Let's create the 42 million, let's just say, right? Obviously that becomes a breaking change. That means if I change my code to say Bitcoin should be 42 million, the rest of the chain will not follow me unless enough people upgrade the software to say, oh yes, Bitcoin should be 42 million. Remember, there is no central database. People can decide whether they want to upgrade or not, right? So that's what we call a breaking change. That means it's not backward compatible, and therefore, if there is a breaking change, the chain kind of splits into two, right? Now, if it's just like a small, like sort of a software upgrade, like, oh, this is a new way to do signing, you can choose to use it, you can choose not to use it, yeah, then you can have what we call a soft fork. That means you can still run your old version, but you won't support the new features that the new version of Bitcoin fits. So these are just like kind of showing you that there has been disagreements between Bitcoin as to how Bitcoin should be run. You know, some people say, oh, the block size should be 1 megabyte. Some say 4 megabytes, 32 megabytes, and all of these are just like disagreements. So if you don't agree with what Bitcoin is doing, they think you're going down the wrong path, you can always take the code and start a new network with your new rules. But that means you have to find enough people who are willing to support it, or else your chain is worthless, right? If I say I create a new Bitcoin and say the next 21 Bitcoin all goes to me, obviously no one is going to support it. But there are other chains like Bitcoin Cash and whatnot, although not as big as Bitcoin, they have gathered sufficient support that it now exists in a separate coin. So it is not Bitcoin anymore, it's like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond, and all these things, because it stems from disagreements and people decide to form their own network. Okay? So yeah, there is, you know, as you realize, there's this thing called layer 2s, which is becoming more popular. I won't go into too much detail. But Lightning Network is what we call a layer 2 that is supposed to allow thousands of transactions per second. It's a bit more centralized, and it's the way that it does is like, for example, if I want to make regular payments to, let's say, you know, Dylan, right? Like I'm going to make $1 every day to Dylan. Now, if I choose to do so, you know, I could do it two ways. One, which is to do every single thing on chain. That means every time I want to send $1 to Dylan, I record it on the permanent blockchain. But that's kind of horrible. If let's say I make thousands of transactions, that means 1,000 transactions of $1 on the blockchain, which adds a lot of space. And remember, because it's decentralized, everybody has to keep those 1,000 transactions in their computer, which is kind of bad. Another way to do it is to open up a payment channel. To say, okay, you know, I expect I'm going to pay you a lot of you know, $1 transactions. Why don't I just open a payment channel? I can send, you know, little small amounts to you all the time. And when I'm ready, I close that channel. And that means all those, let's say I send $1,001. I close that channel, and only the $1,000 gets posted to the main chain. Right? So this is a way to scale Bitcoin. That means I don't have to record every single transaction. I can do transactions outside the network, and when I'm ready to post it, I can post it back. So this is just a very high level understanding. Okay, Okay, so this is some hot Bitcoin topics today. We just had the Bitcoin halving. The halving is basically every 4 years the supply is halved. And everyone's saying, oh yeah, Bitcoin is going to go up. No, actually it's just the emission that is being halved every time. And the effect of that halving goes down every time. Of course, people are talking about Bitcoin scalability. Like if you want to achieve the level of Visa transactions, right now I think Bitcoin only can process like 6, 7, 8 transactions per second with its current technology. But obviously you can have higher if they choose to change it, but it means maybe more centralization. But this is an active issue because people say, oh, should we scale it on-chain or should we use layer 2s? This is a big topic. The other topic that we're talking about is mining capitulation, because as you realize the reward is halving all the time. If Bitcoin cannot go up forever, right? I mean, now it's already like 61,000. I'm just saying that every 4 years it has to double in price. Maybe, maybe not, but if it doesn't, then a lot of these miners will find themselves, oh, maybe it's not worthwhile to mine anymore. So there is this issue there. A big topic is energy consumption of Bitcoin. A lot of European countries are saying, oh, Bitcoin is very bad for the environment. Actually, this is also wrong. You have to realize Bitcoin only consumes electricity. So if your electricity comes from a clean source, it's clean. It's not a bad impact to the country. The other thing that also you have to realize is that Bitcoin mining can actually spur the development of green technologies, because unlike like fossil fuel or nuclear energy, where you can say, okay, my big city is here, I just put the nuclear power plant there and I bring the coal or nuclear power there, right? Very easy. With hydro, you cannot just build a dam in the next to the city. You have to build it very, very far where there's a big river, or I built like all these wind turbines where there's a lot of wind. The problem with that is that, yeah, you can build it there, but how are you going to pipe it to the city? You have to build all this infrastructure, and that usually takes a lot of time to catch up. So often when you build this hydroelectric and when you build these wind turbines, there's not enough capacity to take it up. And mining is a way you can say, okay, you build it, I'm going to just put my miners there, all right? And while you are under capacity, and this is actually what's happening in China, because during the monsoon season, there's too much electricity being generated, and they can't just store in the battery. It's just way too much. So miners actually go all around the country. They will ship their miners to be near the hydroelectric dam. They'll use the cheap electricity, and then when the water levels go down, there's not enough electricity, they move out back to their original location again. So it's a consumer of electricity that is clean. It only emits heat and noise. That's it. So there's also no privacy. Remember, every single transaction is recorded on the ledger permanently. And obviously, with a transaction, when you see address A, address B, you don't know who address A and address B is, and you can always create new addresses all the time. So there's some degree of privacy. But if you are expecting to use it for real-world payments, if I pay you, it's kind of like when you pay me, I can see the address that you paid me from, and I can say, oh, wow, this person has 100 Bitcoin, maybe I should rob him, and which is actually happening a lot right now, increasingly, where you see that people, when they know you have a lot of crypto, they'll rob you, they'll kidnap you, and all this sort of thing. So it's a problem that that a lot of people are facing at the moment, which is actually what my project is all about. We'll not talk about that. And the other thing is Bitcoin maximalism, which is, there's a lot of people who say, the only legitimate cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. It becomes like a bit of religion. Everything else is what they call a shit coin, which means that, they don't want to have any more development. They just want to say Bitcoin is the only thing that is right. But recently, there's this thing called ordinals, where people are doing NFTs and like smart contracts, but we'll not cover that today. So I guess Ben will touch more about this, different ways to kind of store your crypto or transact with crypto. Some are safe, some are not safe. Some are, obviously, the more unsafe ones tend to be more convenient, but just to kind of think about it. Right? Just to show you, there's not just Bitcoin, there's a lot of other cryptocurrencies around. Like this is actually a stable coin. It means it's supposed to be backed by US dollars. And yeah, just to show you that although Bitcoin is like 1.2 trillion, like Ethereum, which is like 400 billion or so, they are pretty sizable as well. But Bitcoin is still the big daddy. And you can see this is Dogecoin. It's just a coin with a picture of a dog in it. And it's $18 billion. So yeah, we're kind of like coming to the end, but then I just want to let people know that Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency or the only usage of blockchain, right? There are other chains like Ethereum which enable much greater functionality than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just meant to be like, okay, I pay you, you pay me, that's it. Doesn't do anything else, which is really important. But you can actually put programs onto the blockchain, and those programs can do, what we call decentralized finance. So let's say, just to give a very simple example, the simple example is that, okay, let's say I have $10 million and I have a spoiled brat that I want to give some money to, but I want to put it away, right? So how would I do in the traditional financial world? I go to a bank and say, hey, can you set up a trust fund, a trustee for me? And I have to pay the trustee, and I have to trust the trustee to do the duties correctly. But I can automate all of that. I can say, okay, I put this $10 million in this kind of program, and every month on this date, you give an X amount based on the current price of Ethereum or the one-off. Like, let's say I want to give $500 worth of Ethereum every month. You can do that. I can program that, and I can do it in such a way that I can never undo that. Right? That means like I am truly creating a trust, like a trustee where I don't even have control of the money that I put in. Another thing that I can do is like, let's say there's what we call decentralized loans. So for example, I have some cryptocurrency. I want to take a loan on it. Let's say I need some cash today, but I don't want to sell my crypto today because I think it's going to go up. Let's just say. Right now, you can actually, like let's say with Ethereum, I can put the Ethereum into a loan, and I can get back what we call US dollar stable coin for, let's say I put $1,000 worth of Ethereum in, I can get a loan for, let's say, $500 of US dollar stable coin, which I can easily convert into US dollar currency or ringgit. Now, I basically now just created like this whole automated loan mechanism system. But what happens if the price of Ethereum crash, right? Let's say from $1,000 now, Ethereum price is crashing, and then suddenly the Ethereum that person is holding is worth like 600 or so. The smart contract is smart enough to actually say, oh, okay, the price is dropping, maybe it's time to liquidate. It can automatically liquidate your collateral so that it can repay the person that gave you the US dollar loan plus the interest portion. But you can keep the US dollar that you received, you're just not going to get your collateral back. So this is just an example of some of the really advanced things you can do using smart contracts. Yeah, you can do online betting and all these type of things. So yeah, these are questions that like you can think about whether you understand or not. But now it's like the Q&A session. So yeah.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
But I'm not sure whether it's a...
No, there's no such thing as a stupid
It's
question.
not question or stupid questions.
No stupid
So
question.
can you tell us some of the things that we cannot buy, which is legal, just now you mentioned.
Mhm.
We have the regulation, but still are some things that which is legal but we cannot buy. What are the examples?
I mean, like for example, that time is VPNs were legal, but we were not allowed to run a VPN with
What is
business.
VPN?
Virtual private network. So it's a way to like you subscribe to that service. I can connect to it, and that means the people on the other side cannot see where I'm originating from.
So is that the reason behind why are you not allowed to do so, like forbidden by the government?
The thing is
Even
that
though you know that you're not doing bad things, but the other side don't know, right? So is that the reason?
I mean that's the reason why governments don't like it. But the thing is that it's not illegal. If it is really so
Only
bad.
when you're doing illegal things, right?
Yeah. So when you do
But I
illegal
think
things.
your IP is like what bad people commonly will do, right?
No, I mean like for
Most people
example.
will do illegal
if I serve Google, if I serve all these things, why should I give my data for free to them? Why should I associate my online activity, like I use Google search and whatnot? It's privacy type of things, right? Why should I want to give that up? And like for example, like last time, in before this was like maybe like early 2010 or so, a lot of websites did not even employ what we call SSL encryption, which means that if I'm in a public Wi-Fi or you are connected Wi-Fi, I can just sit in the cafe and I can listen to all that's happening in the network and I can intercept your passwords. With a VPN, when I encrypt that traffic, you cannot intercept anymore. Obviously now technology is better, that is less the case. But when I'm sitting on a public Wi-Fi network, I don't want people to be intercepting to see what I'm doing, right? I mean, I'm sitting in the cafe, why should I be revealing, oh, maybe he's surfing Maybank, maybe he's surfing whatnot.
So the main concern is the
Privacy and security. The other things like, okay, in certain places, like for example in US, they allow weed, but then the financial institutions say, no, we're not going to support that. I mean, it's legal in the state, but the financial institution is not supporting it. I don't know, Charlie.
You mean like kind of
marijuana, like in those states, is legal, right? But then the financial institution don't support.
legal is decided by the government.
Correct.
Malaysia is not yet legal because it's not.
Yeah, but there are
legalized
many other things lah.
So we still need to earn the money, ringgit, and put in our bank and use the bank money to buy coins, right? So I don't quite understand. We are using the virtual Apple to buy another virtual Apple, and this virtual Apple, how does it come back to the real world?
So you have to realize, because no one can simply change the supply of Bitcoin.
Yes.
It's like no one can print the apples out of thin air.
Yes.
US government can.
Yes.
Right? And just say, not enough money, let's make more apples. That's what crap governments do, right? I mean, like, you see how the fall of many, like even the pound, even like the Dutch, usually the beginning of the fall of the currency comes from this.
This is another question. What is this Bitcoin founder says that there will be a maximum like 21 million, there won't be any more. It's not only the reason like because government can print more money, that's why I want to do the ballot way, just against what.
It's not the ballot way, it's because if the government, did you vote the government to print more money?
No, we don't. So
Yeah.
my key question is, what is the main reason behind that maximize the coin to be 21 million only? What is the real
It's the
reason?
scarcity, because if I can make 1 billion coins, then how is this thing worth anything, right?
That means it's also due to the commercial profit.
You have to link this to economy. You have to link it. What is the definition of money and currency?
Yes.
Because if they don't understand what is currency and money, a lot of these things will make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. So my question is, the one you fix the money 21 million, and government policies like when there's an economic crisis, they will print more money as one of the policy to save the economy.
It's just an alternative. It's like, how do I view money? Like, do I see if, like, okay lah, like, if there's this limit, let's talk about very basic economics. Like, there's this diamond, there's only one in the world. Obviously, like, it's very special. Only this diamond has this special ability or come from a certain place. Obviously, it's valuable, right? But if I make 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, it's no more limited edition. It's just a normal kind of thing. It's kind of the same with currency. The idea is that there should be a fixed amount, but more importantly, there should be a predictable supply schedule. It means like everyone knows that tomorrow there's not 42 million Bitcoin. It's like kind of like gold. Why is gold valuable? It's because you know there's a finite amount of gold in this world, and there's only a rate of extraction every year. It's predictable. It's not like someone can create gold out of thin air.
So can we say that this is kind of like a profit and also like a strategy of profit?
It's not a market. It's an idea that there should be money that has a cap supply. It's just an idea. Yeah, any other question?
Anything to add? Anything to add?
Yeah, maybe
I guess-
explain better.
Okay, I try just for our discussion's sake, so I understand better. Okay, economy is basically we produce goods and services, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to have commerce. Commerce means we trade, we buy and sell. And in order to buy and sell, we need something called money. But of course, people all have to agree what is the valid money lah. I mean, I cannot give you seashells now, you won't accept that. Last time, yes. Last time got salt, we use salt to trade. Now cannot. So, I think what the speaker was talking about is that currently our government issued currency, there are starting to be issues. Like you mentioned just now, not the US government can just print 40% more US dollar, and then the whole world economy is affected by that. Or things like governments can block your transactions. So Bitcoin evolved as a solution to these problems. It's you can call it an alternative currency, a digital currency. But of course, there's no such thing as a perfect solution in this world. All the currencies all got their own issue. And I think what the speaker has been talking about is some of the good points of Bitcoin, but also some of the challenges faced by Bitcoin. So I hope that gives you a bit more context, all the details he was talking about.
To talk about the criminal aspect of this, let's face it where do you think the criminals right now use? You think it's cryptocurrency? No, it's through the banks. HSBC, CB Bank. HSBC, they created specialized slots for the drug cartels to insert the cash. I mean, like, I'm not saying this out of thin air, you can look it up. No one went to jail because they're too big to fail. Right? So, if you say, oh, Bitcoin, how much criminal activity is happening here? It's just a bogeyman because governments, when they lose control, I'm not anti-government, mind you, I'm just saying there should be a check and balance with the government, because if you allow government full power, they are going to abuse it. You're going to enable authoritarian governments. I mean, no one's fighting against e-invoicing. I'm personally frightened like hell. E-invoicing sounds good and efficient. No, it's really bad.
I mean, it boils down to our human nature, whatever technology, whatever platform, if anybody has too much power,
correct.
You know that, right?
It's a
So
check and
eventually get a bit corrupted or too proud or whatever, and start abusing the system. And so it's not Bitcoin that is bad, if you ask me. It's just these people. And the criminal activity will happen, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's the ringgit or whatever currency, it won't matter. Yeah, you can't blame Bitcoin for that. But I think today you want to understand what can Bitcoin do, what can Bitcoin not do, what are the issues, so you can make informed decisions about these.
I'm not asking you to invest. I gain nothing from that. And even you own a Bitcoin, you don't have a say. I mean, like you say, like, oh, what should the thing? It requires many millions of people to say, oh, maybe we should increase the supply to more than 21 million. But it's not an individual choice that the central bank decided. Who of us decided that? None of us decided that. It's going to be very hard to change. It's like that. You don't have to.
Surely though, if someone, the millions come together and say, hey, we should increase more of it, surely that's doing what the governments are doing now, printing more money.
But the thing is that do you choose whether I want to participate in that network or not, right? Let's say when the US dollar is printed, I have no choice, I still have to use US dollar, right? But you remember in the previous slide that there's like many different split offs of Bitcoin. Obviously everyone's like, oh, those changes don't really make sense, I still prefer the original one. There's obviously, once a certain coin has gained certain size, it makes people unwilling to switch to another thing, even though it may be a slight benefit. But if enough people believe to say, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense that Bitcoin should be 21 million, you just start a new network, and if enough people support it, there will be still people on the old Bitcoin, there will be some people on the new Bitcoin. They are both legitimate, they're just within the network. It's like, do I accept seashells? Do I accept salt? Which is actually like, if you take a look, back here, there are many, all these are actually mostly dead. Because they tried to change something and people didn't like it, right? Bitcoin Cash is still alive, but it's still much smaller. It's not even in the top 10. But some people believe that's the way to go because there's this argument that Bitcoin has kind of strayed from its original belief to be this P2P decentralized cash and more to become like digital gold. Because now it's like too expensive to transact and buy a burger. Last time you see, there was a couple of burger stores in Kuching saying, oh, we're selling, burgers for Bitcoin. Now the cost of the transaction is the cost of your burger. So yeah.
the one that I know for peer-to-peer, if you want to buy and sell crypto, you have to either use, I mean, Brunei has it, Singapore has it, but Malaysia does not have it. So basically what I would need to do is I need to change my ringgit to USD, and then USD to USDT, and then USD, then I can buy Bitcoin.
Right.
So I mean, it is quite a hassle because it's cheaper if you can buy Bitcoin and ringgit. As you know, our ringgit is not
Yes,
that good.
correct.
So, do you know any P2P exchange that uses ringgit? Because at the moment, the one that I see is only the closest is Brunei, if not is in Singapore.
Right now, P2P, because you have to realize, because running a digital market exchange in Malaysia is a regulated activity. You need to be a recognized market operator, which is you have UNO, you have MX something, I forgot. Those are regulated in where you, because it's the government, they can choose what you want to do with your ringgit, right? So they can regulate the conversion of that. There are P2P methods, but they usually revolve around USDT, where you can convert USDT to ringgit and then you can go in. So this is obviously a barrier, but it is slowly being removed. So you take a look in Singapore, you can pay for your Grab in Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDT directly. And obviously more and more integrations are happening, especially in the Middle East and one. Of course, Malaysia is a bit more conservative, but those payment gateways are being built. Now, a lot of people may say, oh, why you teach me this? It is no relevant to your business. Actually, there are a lot of what we call middleware solutions to all these things, like to make Bitcoin usable in real life, to convert it to ringgit, or to display this type of information. Like this information is from a Malaysian company, and they are like the second largest company for displaying this sort of data. And there's blockchain explorers. All these type of things are ways to actually generate a lot of income. Not even from trading, just providing services to support this thing. So like this thing, like CoinGecko, I think it's, I don't know, like $100 million worth. This company, Etherscan, every year they're getting like, I don't know, 12 to 20 million US dollars for hosting, blockchain explorers. So if you're a programmer, there's all these middleware solutions that you can build a currency, but obviously you want to make it usable, and that's where the industry comes in.
So basically, there's a gap in the market to provide this P2P.
Correct. The P2P thing is dangerous because how are you going to? You are already starting to act like a marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So there has been arrests before, like Silk Road, of course that's different as a drug market, but you can also sell cryptocurrency on that decentralized market. So there is a gap, but there's a reason why there's a gap, because of the regulation that's around. So yeah, Malaysia actually recognizes like cryptocurrencies. There is a regulated